sanctions, new arrests, and ministerial resignations, the ongoing corruption scandal at Energoatom, there has been a response from the Prime Minister, which I will talk about later. Let's sum up this Thursday together. Hello, I'm Solomia Vitvitska, and this is TSN. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, watch the broadcast, and be sure to comment on the stories that interest you most. Here are some of the topics in today's episode. The defense of Zaporizhzhia.
They took cover in the dugout. Quadcopter got caught in the grad shelling and burned up.
What are the challenges of setting up artillery positions near the front line? Love like in the books. Not everyone gets to experience the kind of feelings I had for 13 years. How did the wife of a fallen soldier decide to seek comfort after losing her beloved? Teenage drive.
In the country there is war. In particular in the film, we focus on the year 2022. At that time nothing was known yet. And that's why they get hooked on racing, on cars, on the feeling of something new, something so fleeting.
How is Ukrainian cinema about high-speed racing filmed? Zelensky has approved the imposition of sanctions against businessmen Timur Mindich and Alexander Zuckerman, who have appeared in the Center for Corruption Investigation. Today, the president's website published a decree by which Zelensky enacted the corresponding decision of the National Security and Defense Council. As follows from the annex to the decree, Mindich and Zuckerman are citizens of Israel, which, according to media reports, is where they left for right before the Anti-Corruption Bureau announced the charges. Sanctions against them have been imposed for 3 years. They entail a ban on economic activity and the freezing of assets. There are 2 more individuals involved in the NABU case concerning corruption around Energoatom. Justice Minister Harman Halushchenko and Energy Minister Svitlana Hrinchok submitted their resignations the day before. The Verkhovna Rada will consider their dismissal on November 18th. And in the morning, the High Anti-Corruption Court chose a preventive measure for another suspect, private entrepreneur Lyudmila Zorin. 2 months in custody or bail set at 12 million hryvnias. According to investigators, she worked in the back office and participated in money laundering. During searches, more than $105,000 were found in her possession, which significantly exceeds her official income. The day before, the High Anti-Corruption Court imposed preventive measures on 3 more suspects in the corruption case. 2 months of arrest or bail set at 126 million hryvnias for Ihor Myroniak, former advisor to ex-Minister of Energy Halushchenko. Arrest or bail of 40 million for Energoatom's executive director Dmitro Basov, and arrest or 95 million in bail for the company's executive director of security Ihor Fosenko, whom investigators consider the black accountant in this scheme. All state-owned companies in Ukraine, including those in the energy sector, will be inspected. Prime Minister Yulia Svyrydenko announced this in her address. This will be done against the backdrop of a major corruption scandal surrounding Energoatom. We have already made the first decisions. Yesterday, I submitted motions to the Ukrainian parliament for the dismissal of the Minister of Justice and the Minister of Energy. So on the same day, the government submitted a proposal to the National Security and Defense Council regarding sanctions against the individuals mentioned in NABU's materials who have harmed Ukraine's energy security. The president has already signed the corresponding decree. Together with the Minister of Economy, we have launched a set of measures to relaunch Energoatom, including its supervisory board and company management. We have terminated the powers of the current supervisory board, suspended the management and employees from their duties, for whom there are suspicions, as law enforcement checks are ongoing, and we have launched a state audit. We are adopting a comprehensive decision regarding all state-owned companies, primarily those in the energy sector. The government has instructed the supervisory boards to check the state of the company's operations, particularly regarding public procurement. We are conducting an audit of all companies. They will fund a joint weapons package for Ukraine. The Baltic and Northern European countries have announced joint arms purchases from the United States. They plan to allocate $500 million for this. Meanwhile, the European Union will transfer 6 billion euros to our country despite corruption scandals. The aid was announced by the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. The funds will be provided through 2 mechanisms, ERA loans and the Ukraine facility. According to von der Leyen, now is the time for the European Union to expose, with renewed vigor, Putin's cynical attempt to buy time and force the Russian leader into negotiations. By the end of the year, the European Union promises Kiev around 18 billion euros, which will be covered by profits from frozen Russian assets. Against the backdrop of the corruption scandal that erupted in Ukraine, a number of European officials have commented on the aid. Thus, the Minister of Finance of Lithuania emphasized that these events will not be a reason to refuse support for our country. Meanwhile, the head of the Dutch Ministry of Finance reminded that the fight against corruption must remain a constant task for Kyiv. And what do you think about the latest corruption investigations by NABU and SAP? Will the guilty be punished, and how will events unfold next? Share your thoughts in the comments to this broadcast on YouTube. And of course, give us a like and subscribe to the channel. Meanwhile, I will continue with the TSN broadcast. In Sumy, in the afternoon, an enemy drone struck an enterprise. Materials caught fire, a stench began to spread through the city, and people are being asked to keep their windows closed. And during the day, in Krasnopil, a drone hit a vehicle delivering bread, injuring the driver. Another drone hit a Ukrposhta vehicle that was delivering pensions. 3 people are in serious condition as a result of the enemy attack on Mykolaiv. A total of 6 people were injured. The Russians struck an industrial facility with a drone this morning. A large fire broke out at the scene. And in Donetsk region, a resident of Kostiantynivka was injured as a result of Russian shelling. In Kharkiv region, a Russian drone took the lives of 3 civilians. There, villagers on motorcycles were attacked by a Russian drone. In Burov, people were traveling to receive their pensions and humanitarian aid. 2 women died at the scene and another man died on the way to the hospital. There is also 1 person injured. In Kherson, 2 ambulances hit Russian petrol mines. Miraculously, there were no casualties. Police say that the Russians remotely scattered anti-personnel mines at 8 locations in residential neighborhoods. At night, the occupiers attacked a critical infrastructure facility and railway repair workshops in Artsiz. This is in the Odessa region. And in the days before, they exhausted our air defense with Geran drones. These are decoy drones that do not have a warhead. They are specifically designed to mislead air defense forces. The enemy has been launching them for 5 days in a row now. They fly one at a time with short intervals and constantly change course. The defense forces have once again pushed back Russian troops in the area of Shakove, near Dobropilya in Donetsk region. However, the enemy has advanced slightly further south, near Volodymyrivka. The occupiers have also made gains in the area of 2 more settlements in the Pokrovsk direction. And all of this is according to the latest data from the Deep State portal. Their analysts report that the enemy has captured Rivnopilya and Yablukove in the Zaporizhzhia region. And this is dangerous as it could open the way for Russian troops to Huliaipol, as Deep State analysts previously reported. The situation in Pokrovsk remains extremely difficult. The Russians do not control it, states Commander-in-Chief Syrsky. But fighting with small enemy groups continues constantly, both within the city itself and on its approaches. The enemy is pressing with numerical superiority, but the defense forces are doing everything so that the enemy cannot gain a foothold, even in certain areas of Pokrovsk, notes Syrsky. Over the past day, the General Staff recorded 226 engagements along the entire front line, and more than a third of them were precisely in the Pokrovsk direction. Less than 10 kilometers from the line of contact. This is how the engineers of the 118th Brigade work to set up artillery positions as quickly as possible. In a single day, the heavy machinery endures about a dozen enemy attacks. TSN correspondent Daria Nazarova managed to see how, despite all this, the work is in full swing.
While the sky is clear of enemy drones, the engineers of the 118th Mechanized Brigade are busy setting up the position. Very soon, a revetment for a self-propelled artillery unit will be ready here. The excavator speeds up the process significantly, but it also has its drawbacks. The first and most important drawback is that it's hard to hide the machine from enemy FPV drones. To protect against them, the guys use a drone detector, which they've nicknamed the Chuika, the hunch.
We work in the rear when we need to. By the way, it just caught something else.
It caught something
Somewhere far away, because there's nothing here. It's not showing any pictures.
This detector has already saved the engineers' lives more than once.
We were leaving the position already heading back home, and we saw that something was flying after us. It followed us for about 4 kilometers probably, and when we went down into the ravine, either it lost connection or its battery died. So it crashed there.
However, the equipment itself also suffers from Russian attacks. In April, during a shelling, the engineers' tractor burned down. The soldiers miraculously were not harmed.
They hid in the dugout. The tractor got hit by grads and burned up.
And recently, a Russian aerial bomb fell right next to this excavator. The vehicle was hit by shrapnel, but it has already been repaired and fitted with new glass. but the guys still keep finding traces of the shelling in the vehicle.
They didn't find anything like that because they saw that there had been some kind of shelling somewhere, but where and when? Because they saw there was damage to the body and found a piece of shrapnel in the cab.
The soldier, call sign mechanic, has been in the engineering troops for 3 years now. He didn't go to defend the country alone.
My younger brother was drafted too in January. He's a drone operator, a pilot. He's from somewhere near Krasnopil. The older one served in the ATO. With him, it's only ever working with engineering equipment.
During his service, the mechanic and his comrades have set up about 200 artillery positions. The work is important because the level of protection for the soldiers depends on the engineers. That's why the guys work in any conditions. They worry most about the equipment, without which building fortifications is simply impossible.
Ukrainian weapons have struck important enemy targets. This was reported by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. On the night of November 13th, Defense Forces units struck several dozen targets on Russian territory and in temporarily occupied areas of Ukraine. In temporarily occupied Crimea, hits were recorded at the Marine Oil Terminal oil storage facility, at a helicopter parking area, and at locations where drones are stored and prepared at the Pokrovsk. An American machine gun was used against a Russian Shahed drone. A video has appeared online in which, according to the authors, Ukrainians destroy an enemy drone with an M134 minigun machine gun. The footage shows a door gunner firing several bursts at the enemy Shahed drone, which then falls and explodes. The minigun was created back in the 1960s. During the Vietnam War, Ukrainian pilots are installing these on our Mi-8 helicopters to shoot at enemy drones. Compared to standard Kalashnikov machine guns, the minigun's rate of fire is 8 times higher. It can fire from 2,000 to 6,000 rounds per minute. The end of the shutdown in the USA. After 43 days, which is a new American record, the government is resuming full operations. The day before, the US federal budget was approved by the House of Representatives in Congress, after which it was signed by the president. This became possible thanks to an agreement between the ruling Republican Party and a portion of the Democrats, who agreed to vote for the state budget in exchange for a promise that Congress would later consider extending funding for affordable health insurance, which was adopted during Barack Obama's presidency. However, current President Donald Trump, while signing the budget, called health insurance for the poor a disaster and suggested giving the money directly to the poor so they could buy their own health policies. Considering that the budget is temporary and will only be in effect until the end of January 2026, this dispute may soon resurface. A powerful cyber attack in an allied country. Government and defense enterprises in Denmark have come under attack by hackers. Due to the attack, the government portal and the websites of several companies operating in the defense sector were unavailable. The Danish Civil Protection Agency and military intelligence are monitoring the development of the incident. Fortunately, defense companies assure that there have been no security breaches or data losses. And although official Copenhagen is in no hurry to publicly name those responsible for the incident, there are suspicions of a Russian connection. In particular, because the pro-Russian hacker group No Name 057 has claimed responsibility for the cyber attack. They refused to attend a lecture by a corrupt politician. Our Ministry of Foreign Affairs trolled Hungarian Prime Minister Orbán. The controversial politician began commenting on the latest corruption scandals in Ukraine. Orbán, in particular, called on the European Union to stop funding our country. The spokesperson of Ukraine's Ministry of Foreign Affairs responded to the Hungarian Prime Minister's actions. György Tiki emphasized that he refuses to take a lecture on corruption from a politician who himself is involved in corruption scandals and has made his country the poorest in the EU. The diplomat illustrated his message with a photo of Orbán in a zebra-striped suit. And this is a clear hint at the scandal involving the head of the Hungarian government. The thing is, investigative journalists discovered that Orbán owns a luxurious country house with a zoo and exotic animals, including zebras, just like Yanukovych once had ostriches at Mezhihirya. And the Hungarian Prime Minister himself denies everything.